I started flying initially here at the club and got my private pilot glider back in 2018, 2019, thanks to Tom, Carrie, and the rest of the team at that point. Since then, I became an airplane pilot, full-time CFI, and I'm now in flight instructing full-time for a very large Part 141 career-focused training school based in Indianapolis. We also have 5 bases scattered around the country. I'm very heavily involved in high school education programs, as well as the safety department at our flight school. So along those lines, Dave and a few other members of the club reached out and asked if I could give a presentation, kind of combining some of the safety elements with soaring. And this presentation today combines what we do, flying primarily for fun, with a few principles that have flowed down from the airlines and professional flying. So I know we have several airline pilots in here today. You're probably more qualified to speak on these principles than I am. I'm just combining the information and distilling it for our day-to-day operation.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're ready.
Great.
Tell me when you want to go back to the next slide. I can do that for you.
So this presentation is based on a book written in 1998 called Disciplined Airmanship. In that book, the author took a look at military experience, civilian transport flying, as well as general aviation. And he distilled that idea of being a disciplined pilot into 4 core principles. Today, we'll outline each of those principles and how it applies to us as glider pilots. The objective of being a disciplined airman, a disciplined pilot, is that it enables us to have more consistently safe operations. Safety is obviously our goal in just about everything we do, but the challenge of safety is you need to be 100% consistent, meaning if you fly 20,000 hours in your flight career, the only hour that matters is the very next one you fly. So to bring that high level of consistency, we can implement some of the concepts that Kern introduced. Also, when we're more disciplined, it simplifies routine tasks. Every single flight that we take has certain phases of flight and various flight profiles. When they're routine, if we're not careful, we can slide into complacency or rushing or overconfidence. But if we maintain disciplined focus, not only can we succeed consistently, but it's easier. Also, disciplined airmanship enables us to enjoy our recreational flying more. When we're consistent, we don't have to think as hard about the day-to-day operations. And for our competition pilots in the group, it enables you to focus more on achieving the maximum performance of your aircraft and the weather in your current competitions. So the 4 core concepts that Kern outlined. The first is procedural knowledge. The second is flight proficiency. That is the stick and rudder. The third is attention management. And the fourth is habit pattern development. Now we'll move into looking at each of these principles in detail. The first is procedural knowledge. It's knowing what to do and essentially pre-planning the thinking. So what I mean by that is there are certain procedural items that we need to know as glider pilots. The vast majority of us, almost every flight we conduct here out of I-99 is an aerotow operation. So for those arrow tows, it's critical that everybody involved, whether it's ground crew, tow pilots, glider pilots, everyone involved in the operation knows and is very proficient at the SSA arrow tow signals. That way everybody can communicate cleanly with minimal hesitation. Think about your individual aircraft. You need to be familiar with the aircraft limitations, V speeds, weight and balance, ideal CG loading for your operation. These are elements of ground school knowledge, if you will, that we should be studying during the winter and during these days of really bad weather, overcast at 400 feet, 2 statute mile visibility. These are the days to brush up on your procedural knowledge. So when we get to the flight line, you have already thought through how each step of the flight will be executed. This is especially important with abnormal and emergency procedures. How many of you have thought in the last 2 months about what you would do if you had a kiting incident on takeoff? Probably not too many, a few. That's great. But that's one instance where if you experience that sudden pitch up on tow, you'll have that, oh crap, moment. And you won't think, or your thinking will be delayed. That's why it's so important to pre-plan your reaction and understand the procedural elements. So some abnormal procedures of note: slackline recovery, making a landing with no spoilers or in-op spoilers, and also planning correct off-field landing procedures. Have predetermined hard deck altitudes where you will stop soaring and transition into either straight in final glide if you can reach an airport, or you transition mentally to an off-field landing out. Have those numbers pre-planned based on a combination of the conditions of the day and your proficiency. Don't try to stretch your performance in that moment. Some emergency procedures that we all need to be familiar with for arrow tow. Be familiar with the signs of an impending kiting incident and know the immediate corrective action. Our gliders, for the most part, are very forgiving aircraft, but there are a few certain instances that you or your tow pilot may not be able to fly out of. Kiting is one of those risk factors, one of those occurrences. So be proficient and be ready to cut loose if necessary. Also, continuing your understanding of the SSA soaring signals, understand what to do and almost train that muscle memory if the tow plane experiences a power loss. So now that you have the mental planning out of the way, you're familiar with the procedures that impact our operation, your aircraft in particular, and your launch methods. Now we move into proficiency. Stick and rudder, coordination of mind and body. When we think of getting recurrent, getting back in the aircraft, this is often the first thing we think of. Pretty straightforward. Most of us have not been flying, or at least flying gliders a lot this winter. So the first few takeoffs probably won't be our smoothest. First couple landings may have a little excess float. But keep in mind the difference between legality, for currency, and proficiency. That goalpost is individual, based on the aircraft, the conditions, and your experience. So I would challenge you to take an honest self-assessment, and as we get spun up for operations this spring, think about what you require to not just get legal, but to get truly proficient at stick and rudder for flying our gliders. Some of those skills to focus on the most are those skills not used recently, which right now is just about all of them, been a few months. Focus on those skills that even when you're in the groove, you use infrequently. and those procedures you have rarely experienced. With our students, we routinely train simulated rope breaks at 200 feet. But what about at 100 feet or at 350 feet? Think about various landing out scenarios. Today, we have flooded fields all around us, and we will for probably the next week and a half. What would you change about a landing out in a flooded field? So just think through and focus on some of those skills that not only haven't been practiced, but maybe they were never fully cemented in your skill set. The third point is attention management. If we think of the mental focus as a flashlight, when we're flying around, it's like a night flight in an unlit cockpit. We need to mentally move our focus, or in my example, that flashlight, from place to place to perceive our environment around us. That environment's rapidly changing, so we need to be efficient and effective in how we focus our attention. As a brand new student pilot, when I first started flying, I was trying to perceive everything, which led to very quickly being task saturated, overwhelmed, and I perceived almost nothing. So the key to managing your attention is focus on what needs to be dealt with first and of highest importance. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Focus on aircraft control, collision avoidance, energy management, and then deal with various cockpit tasks from there. The fourth point is habit pattern development. Every time you repeat a procedure or a maneuver, you are practicing the mental pathway of conducting that action. Whether intending to practice or not, you're grooving that pathway. So put in a little bit extra effort, especially when it comes to practicing maneuvers we haven't dealt with in a little while. If we focus that attention at the start of the season, you can develop very good patterns and flows in the cockpit. In my airplane training, one thing we focus on very heavily with students are teaching flows. We can take our pre-solo students, put them in the cockpit, and with their eyes closed, they can get the airplane started, they can perform every maneuver without requiring more than maybe 10% mental bandwidth. That allows them so much more bandwidth and attention to then focus on other things. It allows them to retrieve that procedural knowledge that they've studied. It allows them to maximize their proficiency because they can remain receptive to the environment in correct and timely manner with their stick and rudder skills. I'm not suggesting we implement airline-style flows and gliders, but let's spend a little bit of time chair flying. Be able to walk through the very critical flight controls in your glider with your eyes closed. I'll go back to my earlier discussion on a kiting incident on tow. If we're on aerotow, say 40 feet AGL, you may not have the time or you may not have the will to look inside to look for that release knob if all of a sudden the tow plane disappears from your view. So you need to be able to reach forward, grab that knob on feel without mistakenly grabbing the wrong control. You can practice that through disciplined chair flying. So when we combine these four elements, we see procedural knowledge, stick and rudder, or flight proficiency, decision making, that attention management, and habit pattern development. Now let's think about flight training. For new VAR instructors, student pilots, people add an additional category, class, or further rating. These 4 principles should sound similar. It's very similar to how the FARs in ACS or PTS are outlined. We see aeronautical knowledge, flight proficiency, as well as aeronautical decision making, all looped in. So my final challenge for you all, as we continue our meeting today, and over the next month, we all strive to regain proficiency. Don't think of proficiency in a purely objective standard. 3 takeoffs and landings, 1 rope break, sign the logbook, work with it. That will get you legal. But if you put in the focus now, the rest of your season can be more efficient. It can be a lot more fun because it will be less focused on the details. And you can consistently have a higher level of performance and safety as a result. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know how to do that, so you'll have to, then you have to teach me how to reconnect mine. Windows K. Yes. Shane. Windows K. Bring up this. Yes, this thing for you before you
There we go. All right, good morning. I'm Mark Kappas, your newly appointed Chief Tow Pilot. Unlike Clayton, I am one of those airline guys. I spent 40 years flying airplanes all over the world. I've been retired for 6 years, and in my dotage, I decided I'm going to add a rating, so I came out here, and Tom and the rest were good enough to teach me how to fly gliders, which has been a revelation for me. I'm also a powered CFI working on CFIG. Hopefully when Bert Compton comes up from Texas here in early summer, I'll manage to get that done. Clayton's remarks more broadly covered safety. I'm going to drill down on a very specific issue called normalization of deviance. This was a concept that was first published by a lady named Diane Vaughn in her book, The Challenger Launch Decision. In 1997, 11 years after the Challenger accident, she was part of a group that evaluated NASA and how they got to that point. And at one point, Ms. Vaughn coined this phrase for how NASA over time started deviating from their standard operating procedure. Now this is a diagram of the O-rings that actually failed. There are 2 of them, which you can see, primary and secondary. The Challenger accident was STS-51, the 51st flight of the shuttle. They first noted deficiencies in these O-rings in STS-2. They saw the deficiencies and went, Oh, but it didn't fail. So they kept going, and it kept getting worse and worse. So STS-51 blew up during the initial ascent. The solid rocket booster had a failure of the O-rings. Damage has been noticed as far back, and additionally, those O-rings had a temperature limitation. It was colder than the limitation on those O-rings, which is one of the reasons they failed, was they were hard and brittle instead of soft and supple at a normal room temperature. So what is normalization of deviation? It's the process of unsafe practice becomes considered normal if it does not immediately cause a catastrophe. A long incubation period with early warning signs that were either misinterpreted, ignored, or missed completely. So again, this is what happened with the shuttle. They went, well, it was only a little bit, and then it was only a little bit more, and everything's still working. So this is the important part of normalization of deviance, the spiral effect. What I want you to consider mostly is undesired consequences. That's what we're trying to avoid, is an undesired consequence. The worst is a smoking hole in the ground. Could be just damage to the airplane, either the tow plane or the glider. All sorts of possibilities. But an undesired consequence is what we're trying to avoid. So we start out with normal procedures, our SOPs. We have procedures and policies we're supposed to be doing, but we find just a little bit of erosion in that O-ring. A destructive deviance, early warning signs are ignored. It's not that bad. I got away with it this time. But I've now changed the norm. And then it happens again, and again, and again, to the point where we reach that undesirable consequence. The defense against this is we don't deviate from the norms. We stick to our procedures. So what are our SOPs? Anybody? What's one of our standard SOPs? How about this one? Are you aware that our SOPs state you can wear a baseball cap in the glider, but that little top button has to be removed because you could damage the canopy in a bump. It's gonna hurt your head, trust me, I know this. So that's actually in our SOPs. Anybody read the entire SOP? One hand. It's only 14 pages long. It's not that big a deal. I highly recommend reviewing the SOP so that we all know what we're doing. We're all on the same page.
Is it online?
It is.
Yeah.
Under,
Documents.
yeah. If you log into the website under documents and something,
It's under,
it is, yeah.
under members.
Yeah, you have to be signed in under members, yeah. For tow operations, and this is the big one, is the chief tow pilot, I'm gonna harp on this anytime I'm out here, is that we use standard signals. They're all fairly easy, but I have observed others doing something slightly out of the norm. Did it cause a problem? No. But again, this is that spiral away from standard operating procedures. So, just by way of clarification, we're probably going to start with the ground handler giving the take-up slap fitting. It's one-handed. I've seen guys do this. This is the most common one I've seen. Now, yeah, I know what that is, but this is take-up slack, and this is hold. So now don't forget, you can do hold at any point that you think we need to stop what we're doing. You don't have to necessarily say emergency, because it isn't quite an emergency, but we're taking up slack and maybe we ought to just stop for a second. So hold. Then begin launch. swing one arm all the way around. Obviously, your other hand's going to be occupied holding the wingtip as your wing walker. So those are the primary things we need to do. I will tell any of you who are a wing walker, if I'm towing, and you give me anything other than nose, the airplane's going to sit there. So if you're doing this and going, why are you moving? Because you're not giving me a signal that I understand. Just that simple. Yeah. It's not safe. Let's see. Usual failures that include rationalization shortcuts. Is anybody familiar with, there was an American DC-10 accident in Chicago back in the 80s where one of the engines literally fell off the airplane. Yeah. So what happened? Well, they figured out that the American Airlines maintenance people had developed their own procedure for mounting that engine on the airplane. They were just lifting it up with a forklift. What they didn't realize was they were damaging the pylon of the airplane every time they did that. Just a little bit. So somebody came up with an idea, hey, this is faster and easier. Faster and easier is not always better. So another reason we stick with SOPs. As I was building this up, I ran across a Gulfstream that overran the end of a runway on departure because they had not removed the gust lock. The gust lock removal is in 4 different places on the checklist. They weren't using the checklist. They were doing it from memory. Now, in the airlines, Clayton discussed flows. In the airlines, checklists are done after a flow is completed. We use checklists in the airline to be sure we've done everything. So, as the captain, for instance, I might say before start, we go checklist. Is this done? Is that done? Everything else check. Set appropriately. What we teach mostly in general aviation airplanes is read and do. Flip this switch. Move that lever. Either way is fine, but we use the checklist. So that was the lesson for this Gulfstream. The Costa Concordia cruise ship that ran aground. The captain, who had routinely deviated from the normal path that he was supposed to fly in order to give the passengers a better view of something, ended up running it aground. He wasn't where he was supposed to be. So, again, deviation from standard. There are a lot of hazardous attitudes that come with this. The first is anti-authority. Don't tell me what to do attitude. Well, the antidote to that is to follow the SOPs. I'm going to stick with what I'm supposed to be doing. Impulsivity, doing something quickly. Think first, take your time. What was that? Oh, invulnerability. That won't happen to me. Trust me, it can. The old phrase, those who have and those who will. Either you've done it already, or you very likely might. So let's protect ourselves from that. The macho attitude, I can do it. Never felt that before. Taking chances is foolish is the antidote. And last is, what's the use? It's not going to make any difference. I'm not helpless. I can make a difference. I'm going to do it the right way. And I've heard this before. That rule is stupid. I've been doing this for years. I know better than the manufacturer / FAA / anybody else. I'm the expert. I'm not a test pilot. I don't know what that airplane can do beyond what the envelope says it can do. So I'm going to stick to that. So, been through those. Oh, emergency. I forgot that one. So, emergency. Hey, everybody, stop what you're doing. Everybody freeze where you are. Which leads me to, who can stop operations? We're out there flying airplanes. You got tow planes and gliders and stuff like that. Who? Anybody. Anybody can stop operations, including you, even if you're not part of the crew today. Step up and say, I see something unsafe. This is the antidote to normalization of deviation. So, anyway, thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm not as fine a speaker as Clayton and Mark, so bear with me here. So this is the administrative matters that we didn't take care of before we started, and we'll take care of it now. I have a sign-up list here. If you just come up sometime after the meeting and initial that you're here. Also, we have extra crew t-shirts if yours is worn out or whatever. We have crew t-shirts available. Put your name on there on the list, and then let me know what size you need. If it's a replacement, you'll have to pay for it. If you're a new student, you'll get one automatically. You should have gotten that when you signed up to join the club. We also have the long sleeve blue shirts like this. They're $28. Bucket hats are $25. Baseball caps like this one are $16. We're going to take some stretch breaks this morning, and then lunchtime's going to be chilly. Okay. So checklists like this are mandatory, especially for students, but really for everybody. So if you don't have a checklist, this is one that I made up. This is the one I use for all the students. The important thing about checklists is each item on the checklist, there might be several things underneath that item that need to be done to really finish the checklist. So even though it's one line on the checklist, it might have 6 items underneath it that need to be done. So the students have to learn those. If you have any questions on it, just let me know. I'll help you figure it out. Traffic pattern communication, I'd like a minimum of 2 calls to our advisory frequency. One before you enter the pattern, when you're 2 miles southwest on 45 for left downwind, call the airport. We don't use IP anymore because powered pilots don't know where our IPs are at. So that's why we're getting away from using IP. So if you're 2 miles southwest, which is where the IP was, still is, but we don't use it anymore, make sure you make a call on there. And if you're in the pattern, either as a student or as a pilot, and you hear someone call, and you look out there while you're flying and you don't see them, call them again. Give me your location again, using their call sign, asking for their location again, so you can be aware of the traffic that's in the pattern. So you're constantly scanning to be aware of the traffic that you're going to be getting close to. Pilots use aircraft checklists to prevent complacency by following every step to ensure the aircraft are correctly configured. Missteps, incorrectly remembered steps have contributed to many aircraft accidents like Mark was talking about. So, for example, on this pre-takeoff, before takeoff checklist, the first 3 items are instrument, comm check, that's line 1, controls, free and clear, and spoilers. What you actually check is more in depth. So the instrument comm check, that's the highlighted one, the bold one there. First thing you do is you set your altimeter to the field elevation of 900 feet. What I do with students sometimes, if I think they're just blowing by that, they'll look at, oh yeah, it's at 900 feet. Before they get in the plane, I set the altimeter to 0. So you get in the plane and they're going through that first check and they just leave it there. And I said, can you check your altimeter again? For it to be set at 900 feet, the little tiny hand's got to be just below 1, and the long hand has to be over a 9. And I normally catch students at least one time not checking their altimeter. They say they check it, altimeter set.
Don't look at me.
So, anyway, okay, master switch is on, so your radio is going to work, and then it's set to 123.05. And our gliders, you can select 2 frequencies. So if it's on 123.05 and you hit advance, it'll go to the other frequency that you have set on. Or if you hit it again, it'll go back to 123.05. So as a student, you should be told how to do that and demonstrated to you how to set the radio correctly. The variometer should be turned on and set to the field elevation of 900 feet MSL. Establish communication. Especially during a check ride, but we should get in the habit of doing this all the time. Before you get in that glider, you should talk to the tow pilot, and you want to give him things like, I want to be towed to 3,000 feet above ground level. I want to be released northwest of the field, and any other special requests you might have. If you're going to do a box to wake on tow, you need to tell him that. So you need to work that out with the tow pilot before you ever get in the glider. And then once you get in the glider, you need to turn on your radio, set it to the correct frequency, check your altimeter, call the tow pilot, and ask for a radio check. Once you've established the communication with the tow pilot, you also need to make the ground crew aware. If they're walking around the plane, pulling the rope and like that, you need to communicate with them too, because they're going to be, as part of their duties, they're going to be checking things around the glider, make sure that and you should be checking them too as you walk up before you get in the glider. Is the tail dolly removed? The walk around the glider, is the glider have any control locks on it? Is there any damage from the last flight? You should just be doing a general inspection walking around the glider. And so you establish communication with the ground crew. So the next step is controls free and clear. So you want to move all the controls to ensure that they move with not being restricted, that they're moving in the proper direction. Then you move on to the spoilers. You unlock the spoilers and you pull them all the way open. So the spoilers come out, and then you need to look at each of the spoilers. Is the spoiler on the right part of the wing, is it sticking up 6 inches from the top of the wing? If it is, when you look to the left side, it should be 6 inches above the wing also. It should be out about the same distance. So you verify both spoilers are fully deployed out to the same distance. Then when you retract the spoilers, you retract them and put them in the closed and locked position. As you close them, and then there's a little bit farther you move forward, and they're in the locked position. Remember that when you're checking the spoilers and you're pulling them out, when you get back and you pull them all the way out, that last inch that you pull out, that you should feel some resistance. That's your glider brake. So you shouldn't feel resistance. You shouldn't be able to pull it all the way back in that last inch. You should feel it at about 1 inch. You feel resistance, and that's your brake for your wheel. So communication. The 4 W's of communication are: who are you talking to? Alexandria traffic. Who are you? Glider 221 Charlie Whiskey. Where are you? 2 miles southwest. And what are you doing? Inbound on a 45 for left downwind landing runway 27 Alexandria. So you start out with Alexandria traffic and you end with Alexandria. So like I said before, I want a minimum of 2 transmissions per aircraft. And if you hear another aircraft call in the pattern, and you're in the pattern, and you don't see him, look for him, and then call him again and say, ask for another position report, because you want to be able to see, am I number 1 or is he number 1? Is there a tow plane out there? Do I need to sequence with the tow plane? The tow plane can continue orbiting as long as it needs, but another glider your board buy-in for the airport to land at. There's another glider, you can land either on hard surface if he's on the south grass. If there's no airplanes out there, you can also land on the north grass if we're not launching from the east end of the field. So just start a conversation with the aircraft, make sure you know where they're at, and if you don't see them, keep asking them for position reports until you actually have sight of it. Now this diagram here, this is the one that I drew up for the students. Okay, so this particular day we're going to be landing on runway 27. So as we're entering the pattern and we're on a downwind, I want you to have a minimum altitude above ground level, will be 900 feet above ground level. I'm sorry, 800 feet above ground level. So the minimum altitude I'd like you at on the downwind when you're a beam of runway 9, end of the runway, would be 1,700 feet. If you're higher than that, that's fine. So I like the students to be at least 1,700 feet on their altimeter. So you know you're about, now this is landing on the hard surface, so you're about a half mile to the south of the hard surface south edge of the runway, to give you a perspective of how far you are from the runway. Now, as you're going downwind, as you look out at the runway, that angle should be about 25 to 30 degrees below you. Just to give you a visual reference to it. You know that the runway is 2,600 feet long, so kind of a side note here, when you take off and you're being towed, I like to tell new students, how far are you from the airport? And so you're released at 3,000 feet and you look out, well, just look at the runway. You know that's a half mile long, and if you're 3 half-mile lengths away from the airport, you know that you're a mile and a half from the airport at 3,000 feet. So use that, that's your yardstick right there, the runway, 2,600 feet long. So as you're continuing on downwind and you get a beam of runway 27, minimum altitude should be about 1,500 feet on your altimeter. Then as you continue on downwind, you get to the blue silos out there, a good turn point, and you should be at least 1,300 feet. If you're a little lower than that, then you might have to turn in sooner. After you make your 90-degree left turn and turn on to base, you need to be looking for traffic, seeing if you can tell if there's any difference in the winds from when you took off, and looking for obstacles. One obstacle we have from the southeast of the runway is that there's a tree out there just off to the southeast of the runway. And then as you're flying your base leg and you're getting ready to turn from final, and when you do that turn point from base to final, you should be about 11 to 1,200 feet MSL, which is 200 to 300 feet above ground level. And when you make that turn, you should be about a half a mile from the end of the runway, either the hard surface or the grass, whatever. Now, once you get turned onto final, you're interested in what your glide slope is, your airspeed, and your center line, your lineup on the center line. And you got about 200 to 300 feet to descend to the touchdown point for the runway. A term that I learned when I worked at a nuclear power plant, we had a term called STAR. STAR stands for S is stop, do not rush into your job. T, think about what you're doing before you do it. A is for act, do not do the job or task safely. And then R is review. So after you get done doing the job, is there a way that I could do it safer next time? So it's just a term that's used for checking yourself, making sure once you do something that you see, you have anticipated what's going to happen when I shut this breaker off, or I do something in particular. I start opening a valve as I'm opening the valve, I can hear water flowing. So that's what I expect, that as I open a valve, there may be a sound of water flowing. So anticipate what you're gonna hear or see or feel before you actually do the act. Okay, so this year, 2025, we have four full-time instructors. We have a couple guys that are gonna renew their instructors, one in June and one probably the first part of September will do their check rights to get recertified as flight instructors. As a student, you need to sign up for flying. Students have priority from 9 to 1 p.m. Right now I have the instructor schedule posted on the website until about the middle of May, and I'll update that this next week and have it posted through the end of June. If you want to try to fly with an instructor during the week, you need to get a hold of me. I'll arrange for an instructor, and then I'll arrange for a tow pilot. And we do instruction during the week. Probably 8 to 10 times this summer we had instruction during the week. Alrighty. One of the important things in training a new student is when the instructors fly in the airplane, or when the students fly in the airplane and the instructor wants to take over control of the aircraft, say, I have control. The instructor will say, I have control of the aircraft. The student will say, you have control of the aircraft, and I will repeat, I have control of the aircraft. That's to prevent someone not having their hands on the control at all times. So you want to use positive control, transfer control, verbiage. And again, the acronym STOP, THINK, ACT, and REVIEw. A sterile cockpit is mainly used in airline industry, but it can significantly improve flight safety. It's mainly used during critical phases of flight, ground operation, takeoff, and landing. And I have that on our checklist here, sterile cockpit. That's the last thing on the before takeoff checklist. So you don't want to be, the student or the instructor shouldn't be talking about, well, my Tesla stock's really taken a dive here recently. Talk about that after you're done flying. Your primary task is to fly the airplane. So don't be talking about stock prices or other things that, my girlfriend left me and all that kind of stuff. Stay concentrating on the job that you're performing. 60% of all stall spin accidents occur during takeoffs and landing. The piloting control must act to reduce distraction that interfere with the safe conduct of a flight. You'll find out that if you've never taken a check ride, that the examiner may do something to try to distract you from the flying process. And if he does that, don't let him do that. Say, I have to concentrate on flying the airplane right now. I don't want to talk about my Tesla stock price. SoarIndy, 65 years of soaring over in Indiana. As Rex had said, we have a lot of people that are on the board, been on the board for a while and do multiple jobs. So if there's anything that you can do to help out, signing up, volunteering to check something at the airport, taking a little extra time, running the brush through the toilet in the bathroom, anything you can do to help would be greatly appreciated. We've been, Central Indiana Soaring Society started on June 20th, 1960, so we've been around a while. And it's a great club. I've been in it since 2008, so. Okay. That's all I have to say. Next.
Dave, one question.
Yeah.
Do you have a recommendation for where sterile cockpit ends on takeoff and when it begins as you come back to landing?
Well, I have it on these checklists, and I have extra ones out in the office there.
I'm sorry, I mean an altitude.
In phase of flight.
Do you consider the end of the sterile cockpit when you release, when you hit 1,000 feet on departure?
I have it as we're on, after you release, it could, I don't really have a line of demarcation, but when, after you release, that would probably be where sterile cockpit could end, and you could talk about your stock prices. And then when you enter the pattern, that's when I would start it again, because at the end of the before landing checklist, I have a reminder, sterile cockpit. So it could start again when you enter the pattern, or you're getting ready to enter the pattern. Sterile cockpit should be reapplied. Yeah.
Another question on communications. Near the end of last season, we started getting into the habit of the ground crew acknowledging the calls.
Yes.
Are we to be doing that? I mean,
Yes.
I mean, how much is too much traffic that's clogging the frequency? What should we be doing as far as ground crew?
Brad's going to be talking about that, but yes, we are going to use that again. What we wanted the ground crews to do is we want to make sure we hook up the tent radio with the antenna. And as you're coming in, and so the aircraft coming in, he calls when he's getting ready to enter the pattern. We would like the guy on the ground crew that's running the radio, the tent radio, and also logging the departures and landings of the flight. We'd like that crew member to acknowledge that you received that transmission from the glider. So one glider calls in, entering the pattern, the next glider calls in, and I mean, you're not really a local controller as far as an air traffic controller, but you can point, if you hear a second guy call in, you say, be advised there's another aircraft also on downwind, or it just turned from downwind to base, southeast of the field. The ground crew member can advise him of that. The other aircraft that's already in the pattern should also call the aircraft that just called in the pattern if he doesn't see him and ask for it. But yeah, we want to keep doing that, because I think that tent radio can get out a lot farther than that handheld radio. We used it last fall, and it really worked good. In fact, someone was coming in from the southeast, and he was about 3 miles out, and he could hear the tent radio very good, where I don't think you would have been able to hear a handheld radio.
The other thing about this, shouldn't be just a guy writing stuff down for the log. Anybody that hears that communication, if he walks away, somebody needs to respond.
Yeah.
Because there was a day when you didn't know where I was, and I was calling you, but people could hear me but didn't respond just because they weren't on crew duty.
Right.
So somebody needs to respond.
Yeah, so that particular day, I had a student that we were to the northwest or northeast of the field. And Rex was out flying, and he was in the 34.
Yeah.
But he couldn't hear us, but the ground crew could have heard us. So
No, I heard you. You couldn't hear me.
I couldn't hear you. So if you're in that situation, you're on the ground crew, and you're running the radio, you can relay that information to the aircraft. When I couldn't hear him, the ground crew could have gotten in there and say, 21 Charlie Whiskey, the 34 heard your transmission, and acknowledge it for him. We do want to use the antenna radio because it gets out a lot farther than the handheld. So the ground crew needs to not only have every individual have a radio so they can communicate to each other and can hear what the tow pilot is saying. And now with our ground vehicles, we put the flashing light on top of the golf carts and the gator. So it's just another way of keeping aware of our ever-changing situation, both in the air and on the ground. I mean, safety is number one, and like Mark had said, anybody can stop the operations. We have to have zero errors as far as flight and ground operations. Okay. Yeah.
One more thing, Dave. On a super busy day as a tow pilot, you kind of keep track where everybody is, but at the end of the day, if it's on private ships, they're probably seeing us before we see them.
Yep.
And it'd kind of be nice if you see a tow plane coming into your area, just say, I'm whoever at 10 o'clock, or don't assume we're seeing the gliders, because they're flying flat, you can't see them.
Right.
Especially on a busy day. So we got a beacon, and it's a big airplane, you ought to be able to see us. So if you see something, just say, hey, I'm in your area at 2000 or whatever.
Yep.
Because that's my biggest worry.
Yep.
You're flying into an area, you dump everybody, and
Right.
you can't see.
See
through.
something, say something,
Yeah,
right? Just so you know, for the students and other people that aren't powers, just so you know, on that diagram I had up earlier, I said you're about a half mile south of the runway, entering the left downwind. Normally the tow planes, when I fly the tow planes, I'm about 3/4 to a mile south. I might be all along that road that goes east-west out there south the airport. I do a wider berth because basically for the tow plane, he's gonna maintain his, if he's at pattern altitude, he's gonna stay at 1,800 feet until he's a beam of the runway down there, and then he's gonna start reducing his throttle and coming in. So if you're in the pattern and you hear the tow plane call in and you don't see him, ask him again for his position. Is he gonna be south of me? Because the tow plane is a low wing plane, so he can actually, if you're at 1,700 feet, he can be descending and he could descend right on top of you if he was also a half mile from the runway. That's why the tow planes take a wider berth than the gliders.
Yeah, I might also add, the private guys, like when we've been out, gone all day, we're heading back to the airport, we will usually call finishing 2 miles out.
Right.
Finishing 3 miles out. So we're just trying to let the pattern operations know that, you know, and sometimes we're barely getting back.
Right.
So it's,
Sometimes.
yeah, we call 2 miles out from the northeast or 2 miles out from the west. I mean, you know, we're doing that just so traffic can look out for gliders showing up soon. Sometimes we got 120 knots, sometimes we're coming in at 50. So. But anyway, you know, that's under the tent, just listen to that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I'd like to ask about, are we still gonna be using the glider frequencies to coordinate the crew movements on the ground? That has nothing to do with people flying up there, and they are hearing us asking for a plane to be pulled. Somebody is not here, it's your time to get in the plane. The crew communication is being heard all over Indiana at the glider frequency.
The crew communication, I'm not saying that the glider might not hear the crew communication, the glider that's in the air.
Yeah.
But the crew communication should be secondary to the ground to air communication. That should take priority. I know we don't have a separate frequency for the crew, but normally I don't think the glider normally hears the crew communication on the ground. The distance that those radios are might only be out at traffic pattern within the 2 miles of the airport. So I don't think that's normally a problem, but the crews should be aware of if they're just talking about something with, hey, could you bring some more water down to the east end of the field? Think about it before you transmit. Listen and make sure no one else is using the frequency, and then key and transmit.
Yeah, use the handheld for that, not the base radio, because you can hear, I can transmit to an executive with that 10 radio. So, you know, the handheld's not getting up that far.
Okay, so we're counting on the range of the handhelds of the crew to not escape too far
Yes.
and clock the frequency.
I think you'll find that's probably true. We can test it out to make sure, but I think that's generally true that the distance that the handheld transmits is very limited.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? I'll hand it off to my next person. Brad. Oh, Brad. Your turn, Brad.
Who?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Get that chew out of your mouth.
Dave? We're gonna get a break after Brad.
Hey, Brad, would you like can we take a quick?
Yeah, let's just take a quick break. Break it out for your cold chairs. Go down.
What's that movie? Yes. Hey, before you come up.
Yeah, he got most of it.
Gotta bring it back up.
Oh, yeah.
That's illegal.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Bob. Yeah, right
Okay, guys, I just wanted to take a few minutes here, talk a little bit about my experience spending a week with Bert Compton. He's going to be coming the last week in June to do some check rides, but he's also going to do the SSA safety analysis of our club here that helps save some money on his expenses as far as the students have to pay so much. But some of the things Bert taught me was just incredible because I got to spend the whole week. We went out to eat a lot and just had a lot in common. We both had I guess you'd say semi-careers as playing music in bands and stuff, so we hit it off really well. But I just want to comment on some of the stuff Dave was saying. It's like when you say, okay, it's my aircraft, your aircraft, my aircraft. Sometimes in an emergency situation, you don't say that much. You think, mine, or, you know, I got it. You know, that's all you because it's emergency, you don't mince words, and you know, I remember my very first time I went up with Dave, and I put us in a dive. We were doing a stall, and I didn't have any muscle memory, and I thought, okay, well, if pulling back makes us stall, pushing it all the way makes us come out of the stall. And it did. We were looking for graves. His and mine. So anyhow, so that was one of the things Bert taught me is sometimes you don't have time to mince words and you just, you know, give me the aircraft. But the other thing is, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Dave. Dave's asked me a lot of times, he says, hey, whatever you learn from Bert, I want you to pass on to me because, you know, I want to train what is the safest and the best. And one of the things Bert taught me, he said, this pattern here is what is taught for aircraft. But there's nothing in the FAR's AIM book that says that gliders have to fly this pattern. And what Bert says, in a glider, you should never lose sight of the runway. So the way he teaches it, you're coming on downwind. When you're a beam at the end of the runway, you fly a 45 because you're able to see that runway. And then you turn another 45, and then you're on final. I really like this because he says that's what air brakes are for. If you're too high, that's what air brakes are for. He said you should never fly out. He said because every accident, he said, never happens by being too close to the runway. It's always because you're too far away from the runway. Because if you get into sync before you get to the runway, because I know I've done that a lot of times too, because there's a lot of times I flew out because I was too high. And then by the time you turn, you've lost sight of the runway, and I'm really out there too far. And then it gets a little scary coming back in. So if I would have hit sync, that would have happened to me. So anyhow, I haven't really talked about this today, but I know that Bert, I think, talked about this 2 years ago when he was here. But this is the way they do it in Marfa, Texas. They always fly, they cut that 45 and another one because now you always have your eye on the runway. And so when you make that turn, it makes it a lot easier. The other thing that I really like that they teach there is the vario. You know, we use it thinking we want to use that for thermaling. They use that for coming in from a landing because what they do is they fly in and say, you know, if once you're in the pattern, if you set that vario or you're listening and you start sinking at about 400 feet a minute, now all you have to do is listen for that tone. So if that tone starts to drop, you're in sync, you can put some air brakes back in and let it come back up. But if you keep that 400 feet per minute drop, it brings you into almost a perfect where you want to be as far as how many feet above the ground. So those were just some of the things, and I'll have to go over notes to share with Dave, but he had a lot of things, and one of the things I told him is, I really like your checklist. I said, this is really easy to memorize. He said, don't. Never memorize a checklist. That's why it's a checklist. But it was a great acronym that you can learn, everything. And one of the things he had on there on the checklist, which I don't know that's on our checklist, but it's tail dolly. It's a tail dolly off. It's like, how many times has anybody taken off with the tail dolly on before? Yeah, a lot of hands. So weight to balance kind of throws it off. But anyhow, so those are some of the things, and I just thought before we bring Brad up, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit, just to get your minds thinking about this, because I know there's probably going to be a lot of people that fly a lot of powered planes and say, no, you always use this pattern. But I like the whole thought of never losing sight of that runway when you're coming in for a landing. So, yeah, thanks. So, Brad,
What?
it's up to you.
Thanks.
Right now.
Thanks, Rex. I just wanted to mention too that Bert had mentioned this about cutting to 45, and he told me at that time 2 years ago that that's what they use in Germany. They use that 45. So you're on your downwind, you make a 45, and you said you don't lose sight of the runway. So you can do that, or as you're on downwind and you start your turn, there's no reason that you can't just make a big 180-degree turn. You don't have to roll out 90 degrees to the final approach course. You can do what you're comfortable with. Right? If you can see the runway, then you can determine how much spoiler you're going to have. If too high, too low. You look at your altimeter all the time to decide.
But I like that the whole thing, the Vario, because now you don't even have to think.
Right.
If you're sinking at the right amount,
Yeah.
it's getting kind of like you taught. The more tasks you can not have to be
Right.
looking at.
Don't become task saturated. Exactly. Okay, here's Brad.
Thank you. Good morning. Everybody get plenty of coffee. Now, there's some decaf left back there for those of you that are totally awake. I'm Brad Hayes, Operations Director. I'll let these guys talk about what happens in the air. But on the ground, we have to remember that what we do here is dangerous. Every contest I've been to, every single day they have a safety briefing in the morning before flying. And one of the most experienced contest pilots that I know, that's how he opened his talk. He goes, "Gentlemen," he goes, "what we do is dangerous. So we have to mitigate the danger." And you've heard about the piloting stuff. You can mitigate danger in the air, not get complacent. But we need to be conscious of that on the ground with our ground crew. Right? The pilot should have to focus on flight. We have to focus on having a clean airfield, a safe airfield. And another thing Bert said when he was here for the last safety inspection, he said, convenience comes at the expense of safety. And we're not in such a hurry here in operations that we've got to turn gliders every 15 seconds or whatever, okay? So if it takes an extra 2 minutes or 5 minutes to retrieve a glider and get it staged, so be it. We're here for the day. We're here to help out. This is not a country club, so when you come out here, with the crew situation being as it is, be prepared to help out. Don't sign up for your tea time, come out, play your 18, and go home. So we need your help, and I know most of you do, but that'll keep us moving smoothly through the summer. Like I think several guys have said, it's been a while. We've all been on layoff over the winter. How many of you guys have done the wing runner course? How many of you guys have done the wing runner course since the first time you did it? I might suggest that, especially for the new guys, that you go on the SSA website and just review the wing runner course. It's kind of like, oh shoot, I forgot about that. It's like when you do a check ride when you're due for your annual or for your biannual review. Your instructor will teach you things or show you things that you might have forgotten. Okay, but the wing runner course would be a good little prep for the start of the season. Okay, operations. The one big change we made last year is that we are going to do operations into the wind. So when the crew chief comes out here in the morning, we will do a safety brief with the crews. Part of that brief is to check the local weather. What are the relative winds forecast for the day? What's the cloud cover? What wind gusts, temperature, all those kinds of things. And we attend that briefing so that we are on the crew are aware of what the pilot should be aware of too, is that what to expect during the day. So if it looks like prevailing winds are going to be out of 2.7, we're going to go down to the other end and we're going to fly, taking off to the west. Vice versa, if we're lucky enough that we've got easterly, southeasterly, northeasterly winds, we can stage gliders out here. But, you know, we've gotten away in the past with taking off with a 5-knot tailwind, and it goes to 8 knots. We're saying, oh, we can still go and stuff. What we don't remember sometimes, arriving aircraft from other airports, a lot of flight training is done around here, and they use this airport for touch and goes or just a different destination. They're not going to be landing downwind. All right, so we need to be staged where any arriving aircraft or whatever would be landing or taking off. Just remember that. A little bit of an inconvenience, but I think it's going to be a lot safer operation. So when we get here in the morning, obviously we want to get the airplanes prepared. We'll do a walk around the airplane. We'll do a control check. Is that the pilot's responsibility? Yes, and the pilot should do that before he flies too. But if we're going to take a glider out and stage it, we want to make sure that it's safe to fly. All right. We had some mulch put out here, manure, as you would say, and we've sowed grass in it. It's still swampy, so what I would recommend as we start the season, we try to stay off of that. So we're going to be towing the gliders either down the taxiway if we're operating all this in and then staging them, or just stay out of this area until we get some grass growing and get it going, okay? Because we're starting to see some peach fuzz out there. So thanks to Todd. So it's looking good. All right, when you're on crew, a lot of the experienced guys, when they're here, they want to go out and help crew. Let the younger guys crew. Don't go out there and do everything yourself. They need to learn how to crew, and they learn by doing. Now, you can go out and help them, give them some guidance or whatever, right? But you know, we've got a lot of new guys in the club, and let them crew, get the experience of crewing. And what do you do when you're on crew? We talked about flight signals and what you want. I think a crew member, especially somebody at the wing, should look at this like a PIC. All right? When that glider is staged to take off and you're getting ready to set him up, you want to watch what's going on in the cockpit. All right? Make sure that he's going through his checks. When you walk up and you show him the rope, are the seat belts fastened? Check the canopy latches. Are they locked? You might even go one step further and say, can you give me a positive check on the canopy? All right, that's the one thing that, I guess the most damage we've had to gliders around here in the last 10 years have been open canopies. $6,000 to replace a canopy, if you can find somebody to do it. We don't have Eastern Sailplane down at Dayton anymore. We don't have M&H Soaring up in New York. So I think the only place to go is Garolines up in Pennsylvania. So getting it done is another problem. You have an airplane that'll be down for probably 2 months, 3, maybe the season. So check those canopy latches. Obviously look and see if the tail dolly's off the glider. Now as a pilot, when I go out there, I want to see if somebody's removing the tail dolly, I want to see the tail dolly. And I'll always ask, is the tail dolly removed? But you know, we use tail dollies, get the 21 out there, so make sure it's under the tent, that it's not on the glider.
Well, Brad, I think it's important that the wing runner look at those things. Look
Absolutely.
at the canopy,
That's
look
what
at
I'm
the
saying.
seat belts, and look at the tail dolly.
Yep. Yep. Now, when the tow plane comes by, you handle the rope, use the hook. You don't say, oh, I forgot the hook, I'm going to use my hand. Don't do it. Stop the tow plane, go find a hook, use the hook. Because all it takes is 1 foot of that rope going through your hand, and your hands are useless. And it's going to hurt. Ground signals. Remember, you're signaling the tow plane, not the pilot in the cockpit. Don't look at the pilot and do this. I've seen that too, Mark. You know, you want to make your movements so that the tow pilot can see them. Take your hat off and use your hat at the end of your hand, because he can see that much easier than you can just your arm swinging, because the mirror on that tow plane does this when it's sitting on the ground. We don't see that, but the pilot does. And make sure that everything's ready. When you're looking at the rope, when he's taking up slack, look for knots. Look for anything that doesn't look right on the rope. And if you see that, stop operation, okay?
And don't run over the tow rope.
Yeah, don't run over the tow rope, obviously. And when you're bringing a glider back to stage it, the glider doesn't have to pass within 2 feet of if there's a glider stage on the runway. You can go way around that glider. And that means if you're driving the golf cart, be conscious of what you got behind you with a 50-foot wingspan. All right. So if it takes a little longer to go out and around the glider, do so. We don't want to damage equipment or get anybody hurt. Back to the wing run. Behind the wing tip. If you're under the tent, you see somebody out on the wing and they're standing in front of the wing doing this, go out there and tell them to get behind the wing. You don't want to wing. As I said, the tow pilot, the engine coughs, and the tow plane loops forward, and the wing hits somebody from behind and drops them on the runway. Not a good thing. Okay. Check for traffic. The guy under the tent that's keeping the books hopefully is monitoring the radio. Put everything on hold if there's a traffic in the pattern. Allow another airplane to land first. This is another issue when an airplane does land. If the airplane is beyond the corner of this field, like let's say we're taking off that way, I would not take off knowing that in the case of a tow pilot emergency, he's going to veer off to the left. The glider is supposed to veer off to the right. If there's an airplane over there where you're supposed to go, that's not a good thing. Okay? Wait an extra 2 or 3 minutes. Get that airplane back, at least a beam or behind your takeoff position. Okay? And I've seen a glider take off before the CG hook where there's enough of a crosswind that it turned the glider sideways, and it's just like a water skier leaning back on a rope. It went right like that off the runway. If had there been a glider over there, it would have been curtains, because he couldn't get to the tow release fast enough to get it undone. All right, we're going to use the south grass for landings. So if you're on crew and you're on a golf cart, let's say we're operating off the east end. When you go out there to get that glider, let's say there's nobody in the traffic pattern wanting to land. You got to remember, we want to leave a runway open, whether it's the hard surface or the south grass. Hopefully the south grass. Don't bring the glider on a diagonal back to the shortest distance back to the staging area. Cross that hard surface. Taxi back on the north grass with the glider. Okay? You want to leave that south grass open. All right. Crew chiefs, make sure you go through your safety briefing in the morning with all of your crew. We're going to keep a record of the safety briefing, sign off on that sheet. That'll go in the, God forbid something happen, that's just one of those operational checklists that we've got to have. Okay. Any questions? Yeah, Rich, what do you?
Can you talk about the numbering on the tow ropes?
Oh, yeah. This is for crew chiefs. Rich has redone the tow ropes. We're going to have 8 new tow ropes to use this year. Each reel is numbered, 1 through 8. So we're going to go out there like, we could do crew number 1 uses rope number 1, crew number 2 uses number 2. However it is, we want to rotate through the ropes. So there will be a place on the log sheet to log what number rope you used that day.
What log sheet?
Pardon me?
What log sheet are you talking about?
The log?
Crew sheet.
The crew sheet log. Yeah, the log sheet for the day. No, the flight log. So, all right, thanks, Rich.
You mentioned the wing marker hand signals and using your hat. There were at least, at the end of the season, at least 2 pair of high visibility gloves. Those help a lot if they're around. Probably get a couple more pair. But
Okay. So that,
anything to make yourself more visible, because, yeah, they got a little, 6-inch mirror that is vibrating pretty good, so.
Yeah, that high vis yellow, or go get a high vis yellow hat, either way,
Yeah.
or a white hat. But it really does help the tow pilots that way. Okay.
This is a traffic pattern question.
Yeah.
Let's say that let's say we're operating to the east. So the glider comes in, he lands in the grass, on the south grass. Tow pilot's behind it, or another glider's behind it. Somebody's behind it. We expect them to land on that same runway. And if we do expect that, then we expect that somebody to be down there with a tug to get across that runway, pick that guy up and run him to the other side of the field. Is that correct?
If there's not traffic coming in, I mean, if you have a glider that lands in the south grass and you've got another glider that just called downwind, right?
Yeah.
Don't move. You stay where you are. He can land on the north grass, he can land on the hard surface, he can land beyond the glider that landed. In other words, moving objects on an airport, it's the first place the pilot's attention goes to. You don't want somebody having to be distracted by a golf cart. Where's he going? God, where should I go? So stop it, you know, park the golf cart, wherever it is, stop the golf cart, get out of the way until the traffic is cleared. That's how I look at it. If anybody else?
I'm just trying to keep this straight. So now the glider comes in, he lands on the south grass.
Right.
Headed east. I'm behind him in the tow plane, and I want to land. You expect me to do what?
Go around.
Because I can't land on the south grass, because he's.
Well, he's in the south
I
grass.
can't land on the hard surface.
Why can't you land on the north grass?
You could land on the north grass.
Well, I can't land on the north grass, probably because there's a guy down there in a cart.
tow rope, yeah.
That's got the north grass blocked, so then I should land on the hard surface.
If you have to land, you'd have to land on the hard surface.
Well,
They should have a radio to it.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm not trying to be.
No, I know.
I'm trying to keep it straight here, so I'm not doing something somebody's not expecting me to do. It's okay for me to land on the north grass, you're saying?
As long as, well, you're gonna be dragging a tow rope over people that are down there by the tent, so probably not. But I would say if you're in a tow plane and you've got power and you can go around, I would just go ahead and circle around and expect that the golf cart's gonna get that sailplane out the south grass. I mean, we've had to do that a few times last year. Unless anybody has a better idea. I mean, just, you know, look at the situation and say, okay, well, I can go around. And that way you don't have a tow rope. These tow ropes have real heavy plastic, whatever you want to call it, jugs on the back of them now. God, if you get hit with that, it's going to be hospital. But
You can also have the person in the cart, the glider will also have a radio, so you can be easy communication there.
yeah. In my mind, and we run into this more down there than we do up here. In my mind, though, get that glider off of that south grass, get it off the active runway as quickly as possible, straight across the hard surface. And if there's another glider coming, the glider's going to have to determine, do I take the hard surface or do I try to land and stop before I hit the glider? Well, you know, I would take the hard surface. So, but a tow plane, I would just go around. It shouldn't take that long to move that glider. And that goes for the people that are in the glider that lands. If you're an instructor with a student, I would say wait till you grab a wing and help get that glider moving instead of waiting for the crew. I mean, don't just assume the crew's going to do everything. One guy might show up on the car, but we just need to keep the south grass up. Anybody else?
Just one thing,
Yeah.
if you see those new reels and you're saying, what the heck, why is this rope so small? According to the Farzane book, you're supposed to have the weak link is not supposed to be the same on the tow plane as the sail plane. So we're basically using 3/8 inch rope. The weak link on the tow side is 5/16, and the weak link on the sailplane is 1/4 inch. Still rated what it needs to, but we want that to break at the sailplane at all costs. We don't want that to necessarily break in. So that's just wanted everybody to be aware when you look at that rope, you're going to look at that little link there and say, what the heck is that?
But it
That's
does
the
look
same.
awfully small.
It's the safety link. All right. And some operations, I've been in contests where the whole rope is safety link. So,
Okay.
that's about it.
Okay, I just wanted to let all the crew chiefs know that each crew now, the club bought each crew a set of the yellow gloves. So you shouldn't have to buy your own gloves. The crew chiefs are supposed to have those. So they're really good gloves, they should last. So whoever's doing the actual hookup and all that, they should have the yellow gloves on so that the tow pilot can see them.
And you don't have to have the glove on. You can hold the glove. You know, I mean, if there's just a pair of gloves, I don't expect everybody to like go through all that much.
Another thing, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but now we've got one more golf cart to get the yellow light on, but now the Gator and soon the 3 golf carts all have yellow flashing lights on. So as soon as you turn the golf cart to the on position, the lights should flash, so you should be able to see the golf carts. If you need these checklists, they're out hanging on the wall out there. If you need a checklist, go ahead and take one. If you see something on the checklist that you're not clear about, or you want to add something to the checklist, let me know, because I'm the one that made up these checklists. So another thing, for crew chiefs and ground crew. So you know, when I'm training someone, I don't always do a left pattern, but when I call in on the radio, I'll say, Alexandria ground, give my position. We're on a left downwind for runway 27, or we're on a right downwind, which would be abnormal. Normally we always do left-hand patterns, but when I'm training, I might do a right downwind for 27. I might do a right downwind for runway 9, or a left downwind for runway 9. So I mean, but you need to restate left downwind or right downwind for runway 9, so the ground crew is aware that you're coming in an abnormal situation. I like to train both ways for the students so they're familiar with it, because if you've never done it, you're doing a right downwind for runway 9. You don't, all your cue points on the ground that you're used to looking at aren't there on when you're doing a right downwind for 9. So that's important for the ground crew to have their ears keyed up for that information, and that's why I stated twice, right downwind for runway 9.
You know, Rich, for example, I mean, some people are uncomfortable getting on the radio. They're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing. There is no wrong thing to say, okay? If you want somebody else to, one of the more experienced guys to watch you or give you a suggestion, ask for the help. But if you're under the tent, just grab the radio. There's no Chuck Yeager way of saying anything. Just, you know, say what you need to say.
Todd, did you have anything you wanted to tell, Todd, the facilities guys, did you want to tell the group anything?
He's got notes.
Okay.
Okay, well, we got a microphone too. Good morning.
Good morning.
We're just, I'm facilities director. I'm trying to see what we need to fix up around here. If you do see something that's out of whack or something, let me know. We'll try to make a list of it and address some of those items. Currently, we've been working on trying to get some of the spoil material spread out around here in an effort to make mowing a little easier around the buildings with the Ferris mower. We've you can notice the sidewalk, we put some new spoil along the edge here so the wheels can go right up over that, and that reduces the amount of weed whacker time and maintenance that people got to do. So be aware of the areas that are freshly reseeded, try to stay out from when it's muddy. Let's see, in the T hangar to the east, we've installed some new lights in the ceiling and replaced a receptacle out there for the electrical. So hopefully we can turn the lights on, see in there when it's dark. The Ferris mower, we got the blades replaced and bought a new set of blades, and hopefully it'll cut a lot better. One of the things I noticed this winter is that some of the gutters on the east end of the office are pulling away from the soffits on the roof. And I think that's due to I've been getting some estimates on getting those repaired, but I also got to thinking about it. That metal roof up there will have snow that'll slide down the roof and then push the gutters off the soffit. So I'm also getting some estimates and putting some snow checks or snow dams up there to try and take care of that. I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. So thanks. Let me know if there's something. Yeah, Mike?
Do we know any forecast of when the pile by the?
Yeah, we're all kind of, it sounds like Rick was gonna be out here earlier this week, and then there's something with a mechanical issue with a vehicle they needed to haul the material away. So we're hopefully gonna get that done. We've had a few shovel crews out here, and we've been digging and, moving some of that material to use around the buildings and stuff. And I don't know, we may have to resort to some other issues, but thanks to Rick, we did get this compost pile spread out, and we were able to get it seeded. So hopefully that's going to look better in a month or so.
Todd Rutledge, do you have anything update on aircraft you'd like to talk about?
I am the other Todd.
2 Ds.
I'm the director of maintenance for the aircraft. I'm pretty sure the tow plan's in annual, but I'm checking with our A&P, or AI, to make sure that all the paperwork's done. The Grove and the 34 annual are due in May. I'll probably have them done in either this month or in May. He's on in a weekday. They don't take much. His annual is due in July, but there's a 100-hour constraint because it's used a lot in instruction. It gets a lot of hours. You don't need the 100-hour for instruction in the club, but you do if we're taking guest rides. So for guest rides, we've basically been annualing this thing for about every 8 months or so. The microphone has been replaced. The aft cockpit microphone was replaced in the 21. We found, among other things, that someone had managed to disable the push-to-talk switches on the radio. That's a concept I really thought anybody would need, but apparently someone does. My message is, okay, you're a student, you learn how to tune the radio, although you probably never do it, because it's always on 123.05. Certainly want to adjust the volume. Don't mess with the squelch. Don't mess with anything else on the setup menus. That goes for everybody, not just students, unless you really know what you're doing. And if you think the radio needs an adjustment, let me know. You can text me, you can email me, and those are the best ways to get to me. You can call me, leave a message. That's the best way to get information to me. This board here is useless to me because I'm not here staring at it all the time. So if you write something out, the 21's tires low or something, I'm not going to see it until I come out again. And if I don't come out till the weekend, then it could have gotten done in the middle of the week if somebody just sent me an email saying, hey Todd, you ought to check this. Tow pilots. The seat and the 87 Zulu has been reupholstered. And so we're all going to swear we won't fly with screwdrivers or pliers in our back pockets, right? Okay. Yeah, anything else? I think that's about it. We're pretty good maintenance-wise. This guy is crawling along. Of course, it's a low priority. I point out that the annual on the 87 Zulu was started in January. It required disassembly of the tail, of the horizontal tail for an inspection, which is a yearly thing now. There was maintenance done on the cowling. So it just, we replaced the seat. All these things tend to have a snowball effect, but it took a good 3 months to, get that thing annual. So it's not easy. We weren't working full time. And remember, our A&P is retired, or AIs are retired, and he has other customers, other jobs, other things to do. So we can't just call him up and say, hey, this needs to be done now. So we have to be patient in getting this stuff done. Any questions?
Okay. I wanted to mention that as far as simulator, Kristen's most of the time available to work on the simulator here. Tom Beckenbauer has our other simulator at his house in Carmel. And do you want to talk about that, Tom?
So I'm going to be available on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'll have my schedule on Flight Circle if anybody wants to come and get some simulator time. I can also be available on prior arrangement, so if somebody's interested in a time other than that, then come up, I'll give you a card, one number on it, and you can give me a call. I won't be instructing up here this year, unfortunately. You may or may not know that I'm on dialysis with kidney failure. I'm going to be sending an email out to all of you shortly, asking for your help. I'm in an organization called Dove. They're looking for donors, living donors for veterans. They've got a whole program and network of coordination. And the message I send to you, if you would send that out to your circle of friends, and maybe we'll find a good need for other vets or for me. I appreciate that, if you consider that. Yes?
You live in Carmel?
I do live in Carmel. Yeah, it's
Okay,
about...
yeah, I'll be getting a card from you after.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's a 141st Street, just south of 146 on Spring Mill. So pretty close to Greyhound Square there. Okay.
Okay, Shane. Shane's going to talk, and then Rex will come back and kind of give us a high overhead view of some finances and so forth.
Oh, finance.
You're the membership master here.
Membership and retainage. So, retainage is the key here. So I started this time last year. I said I wanted 60 active members, which I learned very quickly you should never say out loud. Because we got there over the course of last year. And let's talk about retainage, because right now we're at 49 active members. And because of various things, that leaves us with 34, I think, available for free. So we're, and Brad can talk about this if you're asking. It leaves us kind of at the bare bones of what we need for effective cruise without a lot of leeway. So to that end, here's some good news. For membership, and to help our membership numbers and get people involved and active and really giving your friends and neighbors the hard sell on SoarIndy and why you want to go gliding, we started a program, it's going to be first this year, where we're going to start giving referral bonuses if you recommend someone and they join. So that's going to be $180 will be paid to you for a regular active member. $90 for a student, so for a youth member. That's 3 months of dues.
Per week, just paid in there. Were we gonna pay it, or was it gonna come off of fees?
Well, it's gonna be in your bank. So it's gonna come off of fees. I'm not gonna give you $180 in cash. Sorry.
Okay with me.
It all spends the same though, because that's money you don't have to spend elsewhere. Yes, sir?
Can you make that retroactive to last year?
I knew that was coming.
Well, it's fine. So I'm going to update the sign up form, and we're going to have to just use the honor system to keep track of it because we're kind of figuring it out. You will notice that in the honor system form, it defaults to my name. Oddly, I don't know how to change that, so we'll just see how it goes. We'll just see how it goes. But seriously, I still have a goal of 60 active members. Life happens to everybody. People drop in, they drop out, they leave for a while, they come back. Anything we can do to help get the word out would help me. Not all of you have social media, Facebook, YouTube, but if you do and can spare a few minutes to like and share our posts when we post them out, it really does make a difference. And I'm going to start tracking all of our marketing efforts so you guys can see how the things that you're doing will really change the game for us in terms of getting people involved and active. Is that a question? Okay. So that's membership and retainage. We've also made some changes to the flight log. I know we touched on, we're tracking tow ropes by number now. I'll bring it up here if anybody wants to see it. But in the flight log, there's now an entry item for your tow rope number. So at the end of the season or mid-season, we can see how many tows each rope has gotten, and that's going to help people making the tow ropes. And it's just going to, it feels like, and we don't have data for it, and I'm a data guy, that one tow rope gets used an awful lot during the course of the season until something happens. So if we can get more data around this, we can track that and see how that goes. You remember a few years ago when we raised the price of a tow because gas prices were going up, costs were going up, so we raised the tow price. The good news is we're not doing that this year. Yeah.
Well, good.
Keep laughing. We are raising the rental fees. Yeah. So we raised 20% for each of the club ships. That takes the 21 in the Grove from 25 an hour to 30, and it takes the single place from 1750 to 21. Math in my head, yeah, 21. What that really means for students and people to fly the 21, the most common flight in the 21 is 0.3 of an hour. So you've essentially gone from $7.50 to $9 in terms of rental fee on that. It's not a big difference, but it'll help us.
We are offering financing for that.
Yeah, Affirm, and I'll have my Venmo link up there. But you can offset that by bringing new members in. See? Give, we take away. Anyway. The only other thing that I really want to talk about is, and this is kind of when we get into accounting, we sell a lot of discovery flights over the course of the year. Quite a few discovery flights. I'd like to sell more this year. The problem is, when we sell a discovery flight, someone comes in, they might have bought it 2 years ago. It's really hard to match that up on the accounting system that discovery flight that was paid for 2 years ago has now been used. So I have, let's see if I can bring it up. Can you disconnect over there? On the flight log, I can't my computer. I'll just talk you through it. On the flight log, you've got the menu over here. Most of you probably haven't looked at the menu too much. There'll be a new item. There is a new item now that's just discovery flight purchases. So it's a spreadsheet that's just going to stay live. If you buy a discovery flight, that sheet gets updated automatically. So if you're on the crew, someone comes in, says I bought a discovery flight, everything that you need to know to find them on that sheet will be there. And then if you can, here we go. What's that? promise this won't take very long. I promise. Still promising. Check's in the mail.
Perfect.
Can you see it?
It's there.
Okay, good. All right, so club members, let's go down to the flight log. So you've got this new item down there, Discovery Flight List. That will open up just the spreadsheet of everyone that's purchased a Discovery Flight with the new system. So what we had a lot last year was people got a Discovery Flight for a present. Their name wasn't anywhere on there. It was almost impossible to look up. So this should be everything. So it covers who bought it, who it was for, when they bought it. Should be able to find them on here. And if you can, and if you remember, there's an ID field on this side over here. So when you find the Discovery Flight, if you could just put that in the notes, or the name, or anything on this sheet that will help me track down that it was actually purchased, I would appreciate it very, very much. Yes, sir.
After it's been, the flight has been given,
Yeah.
and then you do your thing, are you gonna mark that as being somehow, or will you just disappear off the list, so if we try to come back and get another flight, I mean, how are we gonna know that?
I'll probably just do a strikeout or something. I don't know how many people we have abusing the system, but it could happen. Something we ran into last year was a guy had bought, I think, 6 flights, so keeping track of when all of those different people came in. So this will help us a lot and help us account for those Discovery flights so we can see how much we have outstanding.
Question.
Oh, camera system. So, yeah, hit me.
What is the Discovery Flight?
$150.
No, not the price. What is it? What does a person get if they give you 100? Can they give it to us at the field?
Yes.
Then what do we give them?
So they will receive an email with all of their purchase information, and the email says just bring this email to the field, show it to whoever on the crew, and it's got the same thing that's on this sheet: the ID, when it was purchased, who bought it for them. It's basically a gift card in the email. So they should have that. No one ever does. No one ever brings it. So we're resorting to this for lookup. And I will have this printed off as often as I remember and hung up on the bulletin board as well. So, yes, sir.
What does this person get?
Oh, for a Discovery Flight?
Yes.
In terms of value for their $150?
Yes.
They get a 30-ish minute ride, a tow to 3,000 feet, and hopefully memories that last a lifetime.
They don't want to book or anything like that?
No.
Okay, that was something, a program we must have used to have.
They get a barf bag with a hole in it.
Slightly used. The fast program?
Yeah, fast pass.
So there's a fast pass program that's like
Sold by the SFA.
it's sold by the SSA. We don't have it listed anywhere on our website. You get a 3-month membership to the SSA and a booklet.
That's been discontinued by the SSA.
That's been discontinued, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, sir?
We do have souvenir packets they can get at the conclusion of their flight.
I forgot to mention the souvenir packets. Christian puts together basically a kit of everything that they need to know about soaring that's available usually on top of the computer if they aren't anywhere else.
Another question for those that show up and pay cash right then and there, and they hadn't purchased ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know.
We love cash. Cash
Yeah.
is great.
So how do you want us to process that? What's the best way to execute that?
Do when I get cash is I keep myself honest. At the end of the day, most of the time, I send an email out to the board and just say, look, I received $300 in cash today. I'm going to send in a personal check to Lisa, because that's the easiest way for me to get it to Lisa. If you're not comfortable doing that, and I'll be out here pretty much every weekend, you can just hold on to it, you can give it to me, I can send her a check. That's just how we've been doing it.
And then what information do we need to get so that you can track in your spreadsheet, or, you know, that we gave X amount of guest flights. I mean, how much information are you wanting in the whole, for that whole process?
Honestly, for me, if I could get, because I'm going to use these guest flights as sort of a marketing tool, so if I could get just their name and contact email, that would be awesome. I don't really track them outside of that.
Take a picture of their guest release form.
There you go. Guest release form has all the information. Let's see. Oh, camera system. If anybody wants access to the camera system to spy on your friends and neighbors and club members, come see me. I can hook you up with this. It's been pretty nice so far. I don't think we've had any problems with it. But if you want access to that, just let me know. That's it.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Dave.
Shane's last point, I just wanted to mention something. Last summer, I was out doing something out here, trucking or whatever, and I got in the desk drawer, and I found $900 in cash for gas flights. $900. The club can't afford to lose that. So the crew chiefs apparently several weekends in a row had just stuck it in the desk. Well, I just happened to come across it. So please, if you're a crew chief, don't leave it in the desk. Take it home.
Was it really $900?
Yeah. I bought a real nice GoPro camera with it.
If you have cash and you don't want to call me, I'll come pick it up from you.
There are pre-addressed stamped envelopes to Lisa Miller, top drawer, filing cabinet in the office.
Yeah.
What I do is I take the cash home, write the check, make a copy of the guest release form, include that with the check so they know where it came from.
Yep.
And mail it.
And I want to give a special shout out to Kristen, because Kristen has made these guest packs. I'm sure he spent money, we need to reimburse him for that. But it's not only the money, it's the time, the folders he puts together. If you have old SSA magazines, don't throw them in the garbage. Please bring them in, because Kristen puts one old magazine in every one of these guest packs, so the potential member can see what he's going to be getting for his SSA dues. So thanks again, Kristen. We really appreciate it. You did a great job.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Okay, you're good. Okay. Sorry, I must have been helping with something.
Well, before Rex starts again, please come up and just initial that you're at the meeting, and then if you want any merchandise, sign up for it there, and I'll get the merchandise to you.
Okay, I'm gonna go over every line item of our last one. I just wanna take a 3,000-foot view of kind of our finances. We're sitting on a good decent amount of cash, thanks to, I think, Rick Burchell did a great job of at least putting us in a great cash position by the work he did in lieu of what we got from the insurance company before I was even here. So that's good. But I wanted to talk also about where we're sitting as far as our assets. You know, after the end of February, we were just right around $942,000 in assets, and this takes in consideration the buildings, the aircraft, you know, office equipment, anything, you know, the lawn mowing equipment, everything else. But you know, we have a lot of non-tangible assets, and they're sitting in these seats. And you are so important to the club. I'm just one of those guys that I can't be a part of anything, whether it be an association, a church, or whatever. I have to be involved. And so I plugged in early, but because of that, I've gotten to have some really rich relationships that I wouldn't have had before that. And so You know, it's one of those things, plug in, because we're gonna have work days, we're gonna do more social gatherings. I'd like to do like every 6 weeks, we have some sort of thing where you can bring your, you know, spouses, significant other, and so we get to know each other on a more, you know, a better, a deeper level than just spending a weekend, you know, on a Saturday or something. So we want to do more of that. But we, you know, out of all the assets though, I see one asset we're just letting deteriorate terribly, and that's our hard surface. If we just let it go, it's going to crumble to nothing. And this is one of those things, and I've heard a lot of people say, well, a lot of airports only have grass strips anyhow. What I see is, I know what it takes to bust up concrete or bust up pavement, haul it away, dig out all the base. There's probably 12 inches of base underneath that pavement. And by the time you do all that, haul it away, now you've got tons of fill dirt you got to bring in, seed it, water it, and how much time are you going to just not even have an airport available in the summer while you're doing all this work? I feel it's only going to be a little bit more money if we put, you know, 1.5 inch or a 2-inch cap over after we grind a little bit of what we need. And so that is kind of really, I would like to set that as a goal for going forward, the board to start working towards maybe getting estimates. How can we make this happen? But I feel we need to protect that asset. It's really nice to have a hard surface. I feel like we need to make something happen with that. So anyhow, I just wanted to bring that up. The other thing I'll say, you know, if anybody has, you know, a real strong heart for this, you know, we would take, you know, gifts in $10,000 increments, but we would pay that back $120 a year for 100 years. So I know it sounds too good to be true. But anyhow, that'll be forthcoming, and we'll just see what the board comes up with. But I feel strongly about it, and I hope everybody can get behind that. Yes, you had a question. Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any questions about anything that was said? Yes, Kristen.
Do we have Hoosier Village and Culver Academy lined up for this year?
Yes, we just got an email about that, guys. When is that?
It's the third week in May, I think.
Third week in May, so yeah, I know.
Hoosier Village?
Hoosier Village.
Second week in May so far.
Who's your daddy? No.
We'll see.
Okay, so I know we'll need volunteers for that, and I know John, you already volunteered to be here, so there'll be others, but.
I'll send out a list here.
Yeah, send out a list, so. If there's no other questions, I think we've, Brad, we all set back there for you.
Yeah, I just want to say a few things.
Yeah, if you want to give instructions, that'd be good. You can use both lips too.
Yeah, hold it. You need to use a spoon. This is chili. We had like 5 guys cook chili. I'm sure there's great chili back there. I know one pot that's questionable. But the stuff in the little round crock pot is spicy. It has some half green chilies in it and some other things. So if you don't like spicy, be careful. But there's some delicious looking stuff. We've got chips, we've got sour cream, we've got cheese, we've got some world famous brownies in that green, at least that's what the guy that made it told me. They're world famous. And yeah, we got soda and whatever. So, you know, guys, plenty of chili. If your drive's not long getting home, stock up. All right. Oh, and there are plenty of bagels over here that are left over. So before you leave today, if you want to take some bagels home, please feel free to grab some. All right. Go for it.